After my husband passed, I inherited $8 million. My daughter demanded it. When I refused, I read the notice twice. The legal language was dense, but the message was clear. According to Megan's petition, I was no longer competent to maintain the property. The house needed professional management to preserve its value for the estate. Has your own family ever made you question your worth, your memory, your right to exist? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. If you've ever wondered how far someone would go to steal from their own mother, this story will shake you to your core. What started as a funeral turned into a courtroom battle that exposed the darkest side of family greed. When Claire Matthews buried her husband of 37 years, she thought the hardest part was over. She was wrong. The real nightmare began when her own daughter walked into a Denver courthouse with 3 lawyers and a plan to take everything, including the roof over Claire's head. Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to discover they were planning your destruction? Has your own family ever made you question your worth, your memory, your right to exist? Do you know someone whose children see them as a paycheck instead of a person? This is the story of a mother who discovered that sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones you need protection from. Claire didn't fight with screams or tears. She fought with something far more powerful, evidence her husband left behind, knowing this day might come. Follow along as we uncover how one woman's quiet strength defeated $1 million legal scheme designed to erase her from her own life. This isn't just a story about money. It's about what happens when silence becomes your strongest weapon. The lawyer's voice was steady when she said it. Claire Matthews is mentally unfit to manage financial assets. I didn't stand. I didn't speak. I counted the marble tiles between my chair and the exit. 23 tiles. Each one cold as the words hanging in that Denver courtroom. My daughter Megan sat 3 rows ahead, flanked by attorneys in matching navy suits. Their briefcases gleamed under the overhead lights. Their folders were thick, organized, color-coded. Mine was a manila envelope with Robert's handwriting on the outside, for Claire, just in case. Judge Morrison adjusted his glasses and reviewed the petition. The defendant requests immediate appointment as conservator over Claire Matthews, citing cognitive decline and financial mismanagement. His words echoed off wood panels that had witnessed 1,000 family destructions before mine. I watched Megan smooth her skirt. Designer fabric. Dallas prices. The same skirt she'd worn to her father's funeral 8 weeks ago, when she hugged me and whispered, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll take care of everything." She'd kept that promise in ways I never imagined. Dr. Harrison, the psychiatrist I'd never met, took the witness stand. His voice carried authority as he read from a report I'd never seen. Patient demonstrates clear signs of memory loss, confusion about financial matters, and inability to make sound decisions regarding asset management. The room felt smaller with each lie. Megan's lead attorney nodded like she was conducting a symphony of deception. Mrs. Matthews has been observed talking to photographs, leaving bills unpaid, and expressing paranoid concerns about family members stealing from her, Dr. Harrison continued. These behaviors indicate severe cognitive impairment requiring immediate intervention. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. Instead, I opened Robert's envelope and touched the papers inside. Real papers. True papers. Papers that would change everything if I could just stay quiet long enough to use them. If watching your own child try to erase you sounds impossible, subscribe. These family betrayals happen more than you think. Judge Morrison looked directly at me. Mrs. Matthews, do you understand the proceedings today? Yes, Your Honor. My voice was steadier than I felt. I understand my daughter believes I'm too old and confused to live in my own home or access my husband's life insurance. Megan's attorney shot her a look. They hadn't expected me to speak clearly. I understand she's filed papers claiming I need supervision to buy groceries or pay utilities. I kept my hands folded. I understand she's requested immediate access to accounts she's never contributed to, never managed, never even seen. The judge made notes. Real notes, not the fake ones in Dr. Harrison's report. I also understand, I continued, that competent people keep records. And I've kept very good records. Megan turned around for the first time since we'd entered the courtroom. Her eyes were wide. She recognized my tone, the same one I'd used when she was 16 and I'd found cigarettes in her backpack. Calm. Certain. Ready. Her attorney whispered something urgent in her ear. Megan shook her head quickly, like she was trying to erase whatever he'd suggested. As we filed out, I heard Megan whisper to her lead attorney, "The house documents are handled." I'd never signed anything about the house. But Robert had. And those signatures were in my envelope, along with other papers that would make Megan's perfect plan fall apart like wet cardboard. Comment paper trail if you'd start documenting everything immediately. Robert's coffee mug still sat by the window. The eviction notice sat beside it, 30 days to vacate the home we'd lived in for 28 years. I read the notice twice. The legal language was dense, but the message was clear. According to Megan's petition, I was no longer competent to maintain the property. The house needed professional management to preserve its value for the estate. The return address was her Dallas law firm. My own daughter was evicting me from the kitchen where I'd made her school lunches for 12 years. I walked through rooms that suddenly felt different. The mail hadn't come to the front door in 3 days. I found the redirection notice buried under other legal papers. Someone had forwarded everything to a P.O. box I'd never opened. My credit cards were frozen. Pending competency determination, the automated message explained when I called the bank. Even my grocery store loyalty card had been flagged for unusual spending patterns. Unusual. Like buying food was a sign of mental decline. Robert's work boots still sat by the back door, mud from his final job site dried on the soles. His cologne bottle on the bathroom counter was nearly empty. I'd been saving it, rationing the scent like it could keep him alive. The spare key was gone from under the back planter. I'd kept it there for 30 years. Neighbors with emergencies, delivery drivers, our grandkids when they came to visit. Now the dirt underneath was smooth, disturbed, like someone had searched carefully. I opened the kitchen drawer where we kept insurance papers and utility bills. Half the folder was missing. Bank statements from the past 6 months, gone. Robert's business partnership agreements, gone. The deed to our Colorado Springs rental property, gone. But they'd left the grocery receipts. Bread, milk, cat food for the stray orange tabby who lived under our porch. Evidence of a woman too confused to manage millions but somehow capable of feeding herself and a homeless cat. I made Robert's coffee, 2 sugars, no cream, and sat in his chair by the window. The eviction notice felt thin between my fingers. Cheap paper for expensive threats. The landline rang. Megan's voice was practiced, sympathetic. "Mom, I know this is hard. The lawyers say it's just temporary until we sort everything out. I found you a nice assisted living place in Colorado Springs. They have activities, social time, 3 meals a day." "I don't need activities," I said. "I need my home." "Mom, be realistic. The house is too big. The finances are too complicated. Dad would want you safe and cared for. Robert would want me to fight. He'd taught me how." "I'll think about it," I told her, because sometimes the strongest response is the one they don't expect. After I hung up, I walked to our bedroom and opened the cedar chest Robert had built when we were newlyweds. It still smelled like his cologne and old wood. Inside, underneath my wedding dress and his army medals, was the envelope marked "Urgent," for Claire only. The envelope I wasn't looking for 8 weeks ago when grief made everything feel impossible. The envelope that fell out when I just wanted to hold something that smelled like him. The envelope Megan didn't know existed. Ever had someone use the law like a weapon against you? I wasn't looking for evidence. I was looking for Robert's cologne to spray on his pillow. The envelope fell out instead, marked "Urgent," for Claire only, in his careful handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. 3 documents waited inside, each one folded with the precision Robert brought to everything important. The first was a trust amendment dated February 15, 6 months before his heart attack. The notary stamp was clear, the signatures witnessed by two people I recognized, Dr. Patterson, Robert's cardiologist, and Jim Wells from the bank. The amendment changed the beneficiary designation from children equally upon Claire's death to surviving spouse with full control, then children equally upon her death. Meghan's lawyers didn't have this version. The second document was a routing change form for Robert's business account. Every monthly distribution that used to split between our checking and Meghan's Dallas account now flowed solely to our joint account. Dated the same day as the trust amendment. Witnessed by the same people. The third was a letter in Robert's handwriting, addressed to me. Claire, if you're reading this, something has happened to me and Meghan may not understand. She's been asking for money, a lot of money, and I'm worried about her gambling debts and those Dallas investments that keep failing. I changed the trust to protect you first, then the kids. You earned this security through 37 years of partnership. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. The safe deposit box at First National has copies of everything. Box 247. Your wedding ring is the key. Love always, Robert. I sat on our bedroom floor, surrounded by evidence that my husband had seen this coming. He'd known his own daughter might try to steal from his widow. And he'd prepared. Miss one hidden document and lose everything you worked for. Subscribe to learn what signs to watch for. The safe deposit box. I'd forgotten about it completely. Robert had added my name years ago for emergency access, but we'd never needed it. The ring on my finger, the simple gold band he'd slipped on 37 years ago, was apparently the key to proving my own competence. I looked at the eviction notice again. 30 days to vacate. But according to Robert's amendment, this house belonged to me until I died. The trust controlled everything, and I controlled the trust. Meghan's perfect legal strategy had one fatal flaw: she didn't know what Robert had hidden to protect me. I stood up, slipped the documents back in the envelope, and walked to the kitchen phone. The number for First National was written on our refrigerator magnet, faded from years of sun through the window. I need to access my safe deposit box, I told the woman who answered. Box 247. I have the key. Of course, Mrs. Matthews. We'll need to verify your identification and signature. Can you come in this afternoon? This afternoon. While Meghan was probably celebrating with her Dallas attorneys, planning how to spend my husband's life insurance. I'll be there in an hour, I said. Robert had changed the trust beneficiary from children equally to surviving spouse, then children. Meghan's attorneys didn't have this version. What would you do with proof your own family was lying? The community legal clinic smelled like burnt coffee and determination. The attorney looked at Robert's amendment and said one word: fraud. Maria Santos was younger than Meghan but carried herself like someone who'd seen every family betrayal twice. Her office was cramped, her desk covered with case files, but her eyes were sharp as she examined Robert's documents. Your daughter filed a petition claiming no valid trust exists, Maria said, spreading Meghan's court papers beside Robert's amendment. But this trust is perfectly legal. Notarized, witnessed, filed with the county. She pointed to the signatures. Dr. Patterson and Jim Wells are both solid witnesses. A cardiologist and a bank officer, exactly the kind of people you want validating mental competency. I watched Maria compare the documents side by side. Meghan's version claimed Robert died without updating his estate plan. The truth showed he'd updated everything 6 months before his death. This isn't sloppy work, Maria continued. Your daughter's legal team knew this amendment existed. They had to search county records. They chose to ignore it. The word hung between us like smoke. Fraud. Criminal behavior. My daughter wasn't just greedy, she was breaking the law. What happens now? I asked. Maria pulled out a legal pad and started writing. First, we file an emergency preservation order. Freezes all estate assets until the court reviews the real trust documents. Second, we document every lie in their petition. Third, we gather witnesses who can testify to your competence. She looked up from her notes. How's your relationship with your neighbors? Your doctor? Anyone who sees you regularly? Good, I said. I volunteer at the food bank twice a week. I balance my own checkbook. I drive myself to appointments. Perfect. We'll need affidavits. Maria made more notes. The judge will want to see pattern of competent behavior, not just documents. I thought about the past 8 weeks since Robert died. Paying bills on time. Organizing the funeral. Managing insurance claims. Cooking meals for myself and the stray cat. Basic adult tasks that apparently qualified as evidence in family court. There's something else, I said. Megan visited Robert alone several times before he died. She never told me what they discussed. Maria's pen stopped moving. Did your husband mention those conversations? Once. He said she was asking about money again. Her investments in Dallas weren't working out. Again? She's asked for money before. Business ventures that failed. Robert usually helped, but quietly. He didn't want the other kids to know. Maria leaned back in her chair. Mrs. Matthews, I think your daughter's been planning this for months. Maybe longer. The room felt colder. Not because of the air conditioning, but because I was finally seeing the truth. My daughter hadn't come home to grieve. She'd come home to collect. Maria asked if I had witnesses to Robert's mental state before he died. I realized Megan had been visiting him alone those final weeks. Tag someone who would help you fight for what's right. Dr. Patterson remembered the conversation perfectly. Your daughter asked very specific questions about your memory, Mrs. Matthews. Questions I never answered. I sat in his office 3 days after Maria showed me the amendment. The same office where Robert had gotten his heart medication adjusted. The same chair where I'd held Robert's hand during bad news visits. She wanted to know about confusion, memory lapses, decision-making ability, Dr. Patterson continued, pulling out a file. Asked if you showed signs of what she called age-related decline. My chest tightened. When was this? October 15th. Your husband's last appointment was October 22nd. He leaned forward. Mrs. Matthews, your daughter was asking about mental competency issues a week before Mr. Matthews died. The room spun slightly. Megan had been planning this before Robert was even gone. I told her I don't discuss patients without written consent. She became quite insistent. Dr. Patterson opened his desk drawer. I documented the conversation because it felt inappropriate. He handed me a handwritten note on his prescription pad. Megan's questions were listed in his careful script: memory assessment requests, financial decision capacity, early dementia signs, medication effects on cognition. Doctor, was Robert mentally sharp during that last visit? Completely. We discussed his medication timing, your retirement plans, even his concerns about your daughter's phone calls asking about money. Dr. Patterson closed the file. He was worried about pressure she was putting on both of you. I stared at the note. Megan had been building a case for months. There's something else. Dr. Patterson opened another drawer. She called my office twice after the funeral, asking for copies of your husband's medical records. Specifically requested any notes about family mental health history. My hands went cold. She was still fishing for ammunition. I never provided anything, of course. But Mrs. Matthews, this level of planning concerns me greatly. I folded the prescription pad note carefully. Another piece of evidence for Maria's briefcase. Would you be willing to testify about these conversations? I asked. If necessary, yes. What your daughter attempted was highly inappropriate. Medical professionals don't build competency cases for family members. Walking to my car, I thought about those final weeks with Robert. How Megan had visited alone, insisted on private conversations, offered to handle his medications. I'd thought she was being helpful. The doctor had one more thing. she asked me not to tell you about our conversation. How far would you go to protect an elderly parent from their own child? The bank manager's face changed when she pulled up the account. Mrs. Matthews, someone's been making withdrawal requests in your name. Large ones. Susan Rodriguez had managed our accounts for 8 years. She knew Robert's signature, knew mine, knew we never made major financial moves without discussing them together first. Show me everything, I said. She turned the computer screen toward me. 3 attempted wire transfers in November, each for $50,000. All blocked by security holds. These signatures don't match your signature card, Susan explained. Our fraud department flagged them immediately. The fake signatures were close but wrong. Too neat. Too careful. I'd signed thousands of checks over 40 years of marriage. My real signature was quick, slightly slanted, with a specific loop in the SC that these forgeries missed. Where were the transfer destinations? Dallas accounts. Business names I didn't recognize. Susan pulled up another screen. But here's what really caught our attention. Someone presented a power of attorney document claiming authority over your accounts. She handed me a copy. Official-looking letterhead from a Dallas law firm. My name typed as grantor, Megan's name as attorney-in-fact, dated 2 weeks after Robert's death. This document gives your daughter complete control over your finances, Susan said. If it were valid. I studied the paperwork. It's not valid. The notary's signature is from a Texas notary. You were in Colorado that entire week for your husband's estate matters. I have the time-stamped deposit slips from when you brought his insurance check. Another mistake. Megan's lawyers had been sloppy. There's more. Susan opened a manila folder. Security footage from our ATM shows someone attempting to use your debit card 6 times on November 18th. The card was deactivated after the 3rd failed attempt. She clicked through to the surveillance video. Grainy but clear enough. Megan at the drive-through ATM, inserting a card, typing numbers, looking frustrated when the machine kept rejecting her. How did she get my card information? That's what we need to determine. But Mrs. Matthews, this represents attempted identity theft and bank fraud. I sat back in the chair. This wasn't just about inheritance anymore. This was criminal. What happens now? We've filed reports with both state and federal authorities. The attempted wire transfers crossed state lines, which makes this a federal matter. Susan closed the folder. You should also know that your daughter called yesterday asking about joint account procedures. My stomach dropped. What did you tell her? Nothing. We don't discuss account details with unauthorized parties. But she was very specific about wanting to add her name to your primary checking account. The surveillance footage showed Megan at the bank the day after Robert's funeral, signing papers with his name. Should she press criminal charges or focus on the civil case? Robert's business partner handed me the file and said, "Your husband was worried about Megan's debts. He changed everything to protect you." Tom Bradley's construction office smelled like sawdust and motor oil. The same smells that used to cling to Robert's work clothes. Tom had partnered with Robert for 15 years, building custom homes across the Front Range. He came in here September 20th, all worked up about phone calls from Dallas, Tom said, settling his bulk into a creaky office chair. Said Megan was asking about business assets, pension funds, life insurance beneficiaries. Tom opened a metal filing cabinet and pulled out a thick folder marked, Art Matthews, Estate Planning. Your husband was careful, Claire. Always kept copies of everything. Tom spread papers across his desk. Look at this. Business partnership documents showing Robert's share was worth more than I'd known. Equipment valuations. Property holdings I'd forgotten about. 3 rental houses we'd bought during good years and kept as investments. Megan called here too, Tom continued. October 2nd. Wanted to know about the business succession plan, asked if you were involved in day-to-day financial decisions. I studied the papers. Robert had quietly built us a safety net I'd never fully understood. What did you tell her? Same thing I told her in person when she showed up here October 10th. Tom's voice hardened. That Robert's business affairs were Robert's business. She came here in person? Brought some lawyer type with her. Nice car, expensive suit, lots of questions about your mental state, your involvement in business decisions. Tom shook his head. Asked me to sign a statement saying you didn't understand financial matters. My face burned. Did you? Hell no. You balanced those books for 5 years when Robert's back was hurt. You understand money better than most contractors I know. Tom pulled out another document. Here's what really got Robert worried. Look at the dates. Phone records showing 15 calls from Megan's Dallas number to Robert's cell phone in September. Each call lasting over 30 minutes. He started recording those calls after the 5th one, Tom said quietly. My heart stopped. Recording them? Said she was pressuring him about early inheritance, claiming financial emergencies, asking him to change the will. Tom looked uncomfortable. He was scared, Claire. Scared she was going to bankrupt herself and then come after everything you two had built. Tom opened his desk drawer and pulled out a small digital recorder. He brought this here the day before he died. Asked me to keep it safe, said if anything happened to him and if Megan started causing trouble, I should give it to you. I stared at the recorder like it might explode. There are 6 conversations on there. All from those September calls. Tom pushed it toward me. Robert wanted you to hear what she was really saying. Robert had changed the trust beneficiary from children equally to surviving spouse, then children. Megan's attorneys didn't have this version. What would you do with proof your own family was lying? The text message was 3 words, motion granted. I set the phone down and cried for the first time since Robert died. Maria had filed the preservation order on Thursday. By Friday afternoon, every account was frozen, every asset protected, every one of Megan's attempted transactions stopped cold. I sat on Robert's side of the bed, holding my phone, letting 2 months of held breath finally escape. The house was mine. The money was safe. The recordings were legal evidence. My phone rang. Unknown Dallas number. Mom? Megan's voice sounded different. Smaller. Hello, Megan. The lawyers say you've frozen everything. No accusations this time. Just statement of fact. The court has frozen everything pending resolution of your competency claims against me. Silence stretched between Colorado and Texas. Mom, I can explain. Don't. I kept my voice level. Your father recorded your phone calls. All of them. The silence got longer. I listened to them yesterday, Megan. 6 hours of you telling him I was getting confused, forgetting things, making bad decisions. 6 hours of you asking for early inheritance because of gambling debts in Dallas. I heard her breathing change. Did you really think he wouldn't protect me? Mom, Dallas is expensive, and the investments went wrong, and You tried to have me declared mentally incompetent to steal money for gambling debts. It wasn't stealing. It would have been mine eventually. Eventually isn't now. I stood up, walked to the window where Robert used to drink his morning coffee. Your father left recordings explaining exactly why he changed the trust. He knew what you were planning. What happens now? Now you withdraw your competency petition, return what you've already taken, and we figure out how a family recovers from this. And if I don't? Then we go to court, I play those recordings publicly, and you face federal fraud charges for the bank documents. Another long silence. The foundation lawyers are sending settlement paperwork to your new attorney. Not the Dallas ones. They're fired. How did you know I fired them? Because expensive lawyers don't keep working for clients who can't pay them. The invitation arrived the next morning, memorial service for Robert Matthews, hosted by Megan Matthews. She was using his death as a stage. Attend your own husband's memorial where your daughter is the host? She displayed his tools like museum pieces. I'd given her those tools when she was 12. My name wasn't on any of the memorial cards. The Denver hotel ballroom buzzed with voices I recognized. Robert's customers, his suppliers, guys from the construction crews, wives I'd known for decades. All gathered to remember a man they thought had one grieving family member. Megan stood by the memory table in a black dress that probably cost more than Robert's monthly pension. She'd arranged his level, his measuring tape, his favorite hammer in a shadow box like he'd been dead for years instead of months. "Thank you all for coming," she announced to the room. My father would be so moved to see how many lives he touched. My father. Not our father. Not Claire's husband. Like I'd never existed. I stood in the back, watching friends approach the memory table. They expected to see me up there, sharing stories, accepting condolences. Instead, they found Megan directing them to a guest book and donation jar for Robert's favorite charity. Robert didn't have a favorite charity. He believed in helping neighbors directly, quietly, without organizations taking cuts. Betty Morrison from down the street spotted me by the coffee table. "Claire, honey, why aren't you up there with the family pictures?" I glanced toward the display. Photos of Robert and Megan fishing, Robert teaching her to use a saw, Robert walking her down the aisle at her first wedding. Not one picture included me. "Megan organized this herself," I said simply. Betty's face creased with confusion, but Mrs. Henderson from Robert's bowling league had sharper eyes. "That's not right," she whispered. "You were married 31 years. Where are the pictures from your anniversary parties?" "Or the business photos," added Frank Kowalski, one of Robert's longtime customers. "Claire, you ran that company's books for 5 years when Robert hurt his back. Why isn't that part of the memorial?" I'd forgotten people remembered. Megan's version of Robert's life erased my entire contribution, but these people had lived through the real story. "Excuse me," I said quietly, and walked toward the memory table. Megan was explaining to a group of neighbors how difficult it had been to care for both parents during Robert's final years. How she'd managed everything from Dallas while balancing her own career. I picked up Robert's hammer from the shadow box. The handle was smooth from decades of use. I'd watched him teach Megan to hold it properly when she was 8 years old, building a treehouse in our backyard. "That's a beautiful piece," said Jim Valdez, Robert's electrical contractor. "But wasn't this the hammer Claire used to fix the porch railing last spring?" I remember helping her with that project. Megan's explanation faltered. "Yes," I said quietly, still holding the hammer. Robert's arthritis was bothering him that week. More neighbors gathered around. They remembered the real story. How Robert and I had worked together, decided together, built together. I heard Megan tell someone, "The competency hearing is scheduled for next Tuesday. It's just a formality." I set the hammer back in the shadow box and walked toward the exit. Let her have her performance. I had something better now. I had witnesses who remembered the truth. In the parking lot, Frank Kowalski caught up with me. "Claire, if you need people to vouch for your character, you call me first," he said. "Megan's story in there doesn't match the woman who helped us rebuild after the tornado." I had more than documents now. I had community. Crash your own competency hearing or prepare in secret? Dr. Reynolds read from a report I'd never seen. Patient shows clear signs of cognitive decline and financial decision-making impairment. I'd never met Dr. Reynolds in my life. The courtroom felt smaller than during the estate hearing. Just essential players, Judge Morrison, Maria, Megan's remaining attorney, and this psychiatrist who claimed to have examined me. "Dr. Reynolds," Maria stood slowly, "when exactly did you conduct this psychological evaluation of Mrs. Matthews?" The doctor adjusted his glasses. "November 8th, in my Denver office." "And how long was this evaluation?" "Approximately 90 minutes. Standard protocol for competency assessments." I gripped my hands together. November 8th, I'd been in Colorado Springs filing Robert's insurance paperwork. I had the time-stamped receipts in my purse. Can you describe Mrs. Matthews' appearance during this evaluation? Dr. Reynolds consulted his notes. Gray hair, approximately 5 feet 4 inches, wearing a blue sweater and black pants. Clothes enough to be believable. Generic enough to apply to thousands of women my age. Did Mrs. Matthews bring anyone with her to this appointment? She came alone, as requested. Maria opened her briefcase. Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence that Mrs. Matthews was in Colorado Springs on November 8, conducting insurance business related to her husband's estate. She handed papers to the judge. My insurance office receipts, time-stamped at 2:17 p.m. A 3-hour drive from Denver. Dr. Reynolds, Maria continued, at what time did this 90-minute evaluation begin? 2 o'clock. Judge Morrison looked between the papers and the psychiatrist. Doctor, these receipts show Mrs. Matthews in Colorado Springs at the exact time you claimed she was in your Denver office. Dr. Reynolds shuffled through his notes. His confidence wavered. Perhaps I'm misremembering the date. Dr. Reynolds, the judge interrupted, do you have appointment scheduling records? Reception desk logs? Payment receipts? My practice uses a simplified record-keeping system. That's a no, Maria said crisply. Your Honor, we've also discovered that Dr. Reynolds' practice license was suspended in Texas for irregular documentation practices. My heart hammered. Megan had hired a disgraced psychiatrist to write a fake evaluation. Furthermore, Maria continued, Mrs. Matthews' actual physician, Dr. Patterson, conducted a legitimate cognitive assessment last week. She scored in the 92nd percentile for her age group. Judge Morrison removed his glasses and cleaned them slowly. The courtroom was perfectly quiet. Dr. Reynolds, aside from this disputed November 8 appointment, have you ever examined Mrs. Matthews? Well, no, but the initial evaluation was comprehensive. The evaluation that occurred when she was documented to be in another city? Dr. Reynolds's face flushed red. There may have been a scheduling mix-up. Or a deliberate fabrication. Judge Morrison's voice had gone cold. Dr. Reynolds, did anyone pay you to write this report without conducting an actual examination? The doctor's hands shook slightly. I received consultation fees for reviewing materials and providing professional opinions. Materials provided by whom? The judge asked Dr. Reynolds one simple question. When exactly did you examine Mrs. Matthews? His silence filled the courtroom. Predict the judge's next move in the comments. Maria opened her briefcase like she was defusing a bomb. Claire, we have them. All of them. Wednesday morning in her office, papers spread across every surface. Bank security photos, medical records, business documents, phone recordings, witness statements. 3 weeks of investigation laid out like a prosecutorial war room. The psychiatric evaluation is completely fabricated, Maria said, organizing documents into stacks. Dr. Reynolds admitted he never examined you. Megan's attorneys paid him $5,000 to write a report based on family-provided information. She handed me a bank statement. Your daughter's gambling debts in Dallas total $400,000. Casino markers, private poker games, sports betting accounts. She owes money to people who don't accept late payments. The numbers swam on the page. $400,000. The inheritance grab wasn't greed, Claire. It was desperation. Maria pulled out Tom Bradley's business records. Your husband's partnership was worth more than the original estate estimate. The rental properties, equipment, ongoing contracts, you're looking at $2.8 million in total assets. I'd lived simply for 31 years, never knowing we were wealthy. Here's what happened, Maria continued, moving papers like a detective solving a case. Megan got in trouble gambling. Called your husband asking for early inheritance. He said no. She escalated pressure, threatened to cut contact with grandchildren. Robert started documenting everything. She played a snippet from one of Tom's recordings. Robert's voice, tired but clear, Megan, I won't liquidate our retirement to cover your gambling debts. Your mother and I worked too hard for this. Megan's voice, sharp with anger. Dad, you're old. You won't live forever. I need this money now. Maria stopped the recording. She said that to her dying father. The next stack contained Dr. Patterson's documentation. Medical timeline proves Robert was mentally sharp until the day he died. Blood work, cognitive tests, medication compliance, everything normal for a 73-year-old man. Maria opened another folder. Bank surveillance footage, signature analysis, power of attorney forensics. Everything proves systematic fraud. She handed me a thick legal document. Witness statements from 12 people who interacted with you regularly after Robert's death. Neighbors, bank staff, insurance agents, grocery store clerks. Everyone confirms you were functioning normally, making rational decisions, handling complex paperwork independently. The evidence was overwhelming. But Maria saved the biggest revelation for last. Claire, your husband didn't just change the trust beneficiary. He opened a separate account in September and moved $1.8 million into it. Account accessible only by you, with specific instructions that it remain untouched unless you face legal challenges to your competency. I stared at her. He knew. He knew exactly what she was capable of. Maria pulled out the final document. Handwritten letter from Robert to his attorney, dated September 25. Quote, if Megan attempts to have Claire declared incompetent, release all documentation proving otherwise and ensure Claire has resources to fight back. My hands trembled holding Robert's letter. He'd protected me even after death. There's more. Robert recorded a video statement in his attorney's office. Filed under seal with instructions to release it if competency challenges arose. The final piece was Robert's voice recording from his attorney's office. If Megan tries to take everything, show Claire this. Should she play the recording in open court? Robert's voice filled the courtroom. I'm worried about Megan's gambling. Claire gets everything until I'm sure the kids are stable. The room went silent. Judge Morrison had called a hearing to review new evidence. Maria wheeled in a television and DVD player. Megan sat at the defendant's table with one remaining attorney, the Dallas team having withdrawn after the psychiatric scandal. This video statement was recorded October 15 in Attorney Jackson Meyer's office, Maria announced. Mr. Matthews specifically requested it be sealed unless competency challenges arose against his wife. The screen flickered to life. Robert sat behind a mahogany desk, wearing his good blue shirt, looking directly into the camera. My name is Robert Charles Matthews. I'm recording this statement of sound mind and body because I'm concerned about my daughter's financial pressure and what she might do after I'm gone. His voice was strong, clear, unmistakably coherent. Megan has gambling debts exceeding $300,000. She's asked me repeatedly to liquidate assets to cover these debts. I've refused. She's threatened to cut contact with our grandchildren if I don't comply. I watched Megan's face pale as her father's words filled the courtroom. Furthermore, Megan has begun questioning my wife's mental capacity, suggesting Claire is becoming forgetful or confused. This is completely false. Claire manages our household finances, coordinates my medical appointments, and handles complex business correspondence with complete competence. Judge Morrison leaned forward, watching intently. If anyone challenges Claire's mental fitness after my death, it will be because they want to steal what we've built together. Claire is the strongest, smartest woman I know. She deserves every protection I can provide. Robert paused, looking directly into the camera lens. Megan, if you're watching this, I love you. But love doesn't mean enabling destructive choices. Get help for the gambling. Stop pressuring your mother. Honor the family we built instead of destroying it for money. The video ended. The courtroom stayed silent for 10 long seconds. Judge Morrison removed his glasses. Mr. Kowalski, in 30 years on this bench, I've rarely seen such clear documentation of intent and mental capacity. Megan's attorney shuffled papers nervously. Your Honor, emotional family dynamics don't necessarily reflect. Counselor, I've reviewed the evidence. Fabricated psychiatric reports, forged power of attorney documents, attempted bank fraud, and now video testimony from the deceased explicitly contradicting your client's claims. Judge Morrison's voice carried no warmth. This petition appears to be fraudulent from beginning to end. Megan stood up and walked out before the judge finished reading Robert's words. Her attorney stayed seated. I watched my daughter leave, her heels clicking against marble floors. The same sound from that first courtroom day when this all began. Mrs. Matthews, Judge Morrison continued, this court finds no evidence supporting claims of mental incompetence. The preservation order remains in effect until all parties agree to dismiss these proceedings. Outside the courthouse, Maria squeezed my shoulder. It's over, Claire. You won. But watching Megan drive away alone, it didn't feel like winning. What would Robert think of his daughter's betrayal? The settlement offer came through Megan's new attorney, local, not Dallas. One paragraph, full withdrawal of competency claims. I read the document in Maria's office on a Thursday morning that felt like spring. Short, simple language. No admissions of wrongdoing. No apologies. Just legal surrender. She's also agreeing to return the $57,000 she withdrew from your joint savings account before the preservation order, Maria explained. Plus interest and legal fees. The numbers seemed small compared to what she'd attempted to steal. But it represented every withdrawal she'd made using forged signatures during those first chaotic weeks after Robert's death. What about the criminal charges? The federal prosecutor is still deciding. Bank fraud and identity theft are serious charges, but Megan's cooperation might influence their decision. I signed the agreement with the same pen I'd used to sign Robert's death certificate. Another ending, another signature. Maria, what happens to families after something like this? She closed the file folder carefully. Sometimes they rebuild. Sometimes they don't. But Claire, you protected yourself and honored your husband's wishes. That matters more than family reconciliation. 3 days later, my phone rang. Megan's voice was quiet, tired. Mom, I signed the papers. I know. I'm moving back to Colorado. Dallas didn't work out. I waited, letting her fill the silence. I lost everything gambling. The house, the cars, even the engagement ring from my second marriage. Her voice cracked slightly. I thought Dad's money would fix it all. Gambling addiction is treatable, Megan. I know. I'm getting help. Started last week. I sat in Robert's chair, looking out at the garden where spring flowers were pushing through winter soil. Mom, can you ever forgive me? I don't know yet. Will you try? I'm trying every day. Can I see you sometime? When you're ready? I thought about Robert's video, his words about love not meaning enabling destructive choices. About getting help instead of getting money. When you've been clean from gambling for 6 months, call me. We'll have coffee somewhere public. Okay. Her voice was very small. Mom? Yes? I'm sorry about the memorial service. I was angry and hurt and stupid. You were desperate. That's not an excuse. No, it's not. But it's an explanation. After we hung up, I found the settlement documents in my kitchen. The final document had a handwritten note, I'm sorry, Mom. Dallas was expensive. 6 words that acknowledged everything and nothing. I put the papers in the cedar chest with Robert's cologne and his hidden recordings. Someday, maybe they'd be evidence of recovery instead of evidence of betrayal. But not yet. Forgive immediately or make her earn it back. I named it the Robert Matthews Foundation for Elder Financial Protection. The first case file was my own. The lawyer's office in Fort Collins had become familiar territory over 6 months of meetings. Today, Maria and I sat across from incorporation paperwork that would turn my pain into someone else's protection. The foundation will provide legal aid for seniors facing financial abuse by family members, I explained to the filing clerk. Free consultation, court representation, and education about protection strategies. Maria had helped structure everything. The foundation would operate with a 3-person board, myself as president, Dr. Patterson as medical advisor, and Tom Bradley as community representative. Simple, focused, effective. What made you decide on this approach? The clerk asked, stamping documents. I thought about the months since Robert died. The shock, the betrayal, the slow fight back to safety. How many other widows were facing similar attacks right now, without Robert's foresight or Maria's expertise? Because family predators count on shame keeping their victims quiet, I said. Elder financial abuse is the most underreported crime in America. The first donation check was my own, $100,000 from the settlement funds Megan had returned. Enough to help 20 families fight back against inheritance theft. Maria opened a new file folder. Claire, we already have 3 cases waiting. The first case was heartbreaking and familiar. 78-year-old Martha Valdez, whose son had moved into her house after his divorce and gradually taken control of her pension checks, Social Security payments, and savings account. Martha was afraid to report him because he was her only remaining family. He says I'm too old to handle money anymore, Martha explained during our first consultation. Says if I don't sign everything over to him, I'll end up in a nursing home. The same threats, different family. The same shame, different victim. Martha, being old doesn't make you incompetent. And fear doesn't make bad decisions legal. We helped Martha document the unauthorized transactions, gathered witnesses from her church and neighborhood, and filed for financial protection orders. Within 2 weeks, her son was facing criminal charges and Martha had her money back. Case number 2, widower whose daughter-in-law convinced him to sign over his house deed after his wife died, claiming it was just for tax purposes. Case number 3, elderly couple whose live-in grandson was forging checks and selling their belongings while claiming to provide care. Each case followed familiar patterns. Family members exploiting grief, isolation, and trust. Legal documents presented as helpfulness. Shame used as silence. But each case also proved something hopeful. When seniors had support and information, they could fight back effectively. Most family financial predators weren't sophisticated criminals. They were desperate relatives who counted on their victims' shame and love. The foundation is growing faster than expected, Maria reported after 3 months. Word spreads quickly in senior communities. We'd helped 8 families recover stolen assets and prosecute financial abuse. The foundation had partnerships with 3 county sheriff's offices and 2 district attorney offices. Dr. Patterson says other medical practices are asking for our educational materials, I added. They want to train staff to recognize financial abuse warning signs. But the call that mattered most came on a Tuesday in April. The foundation's first client called crying, "My son did exactly what your daughter tried to do." Her voice was shaky but determined. "Mrs. Matthews, if you hadn't started this foundation, would have lost everything. My grandson would have grown up thinking it's normal to steal from family." I sat in Robert's old office, surrounded by case files and legal documents, and finally felt his presence again. Not in the cologne bottle or the cedar chest, but in this work. This protection he'd made possible. What would you build from your worst betrayal? They didn't applaud when I spoke at the elder law conference. They took notes like their lives depended on it. Financial elder abuse by family members increases by 18% annually, I told the room of attorneys, social workers, and medical professionals. The Robert Matthews Foundation has documented this pattern across 12 counties in Colorado. 18 months after the memorial service where Megan erased me from Robert's story, I stood at a podium telling our real story to people who could protect other families. The average victim loses $67,000 before seeking help. The average perpetrator is a family member facing personal financial crisis. The average timeline from first manipulation to complete asset theft is 14 months. I clicked to the next slide. Statistics that represented actual people, actual families destroyed by desperate relatives. Early warning signs include family members asking detailed questions about financial assets, requests to be added to bank accounts for convenience, pressure to sign legal documents quickly, and isolation from other family members or professional advisors. After my presentation, a woman approached the podium. Late 50s, carefully dressed, carrying a notebook filled with handwritten notes. "Mrs. Matthews, I'm Sarah Chen from the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office. We've had 4 cases this year that match your daughter's exact pattern. 4 families. Same story, different names. Are you willing to consult on prosecution strategies?" she asked. "As long as it helps protect people." The foundation had grown beyond what Maria and I had planned. Partnerships with elder law attorneys in 6 states. Training materials for bank fraud departments. Educational seminars for senior community centers. Megan had been out of gambling rehabilitation for 4 months, working at a Denver nonprofit helping women recover from addiction. We met for coffee once monthly at a neutral restaurant, rebuilding trust in careful increments. "I'm proud of what you've built, Mom," she'd said at our last meeting. "Dad would be too." "Your father built it," I'd replied. "He just used me to finish the construction." Our relationship would never return to what it was before. Too much had been said, too much had been proven about what people do when they're desperate. But we were learning to be honest instead of comfortable, careful instead of close. The foundation's office was in the same building where Robert's construction company had been headquartered. I kept his old desk, his filing system, even his coffee mug with the faded company logo. But the cedar chest at home held different papers now. Not evidence of betrayal, but letters from families we'd helped. Thank you cards from grandchildren who didn't have to watch their parents steal from their grandparents. Court documents that proved justice was possible when people refused to stay silent. I still keep Robert's cologne bottle on the dresser. But now the cedar chest holds different papers: hope instead of evidence, help instead of hurt. The foundation had helped 43 families in 18 months. Recovered $1.6 million in stolen assets. Prevented 12 forced nursing home placements. Prosecuted 8 cases of elder financial abuse successfully. But the number that mattered most was one: the grandson in Grand Junction who called to thank me for teaching his family that love doesn't require financial sacrifice, that protecting elderly parents means protecting them from predatory children too. "Mrs. Matthews," he'd said, "my grandmother kept her house because you taught us it was okay to say no to my uncle." I hung up the phone and walked to the kitchen window. Spring in Colorado brought new life to Robert's garden. Tulips he'd planted the October before he died were blooming for the second time. Somewhere in Dallas or Denver, another family was facing the same choice Megan had made. Money or integrity? Desperation or patience? Theft or trust? The foundation would be there when they needed protection. Robert's legacy would be there when they needed hope. And I would be there, quiet but unbreakable, holding the line between family love and family predators. The inheritance was never about money. It was about proving that even when people you love try to erase you, you don't have to disappear. Share one thing you'd do differently if you were Claire. Your comment might help someone facing this right now.